traps improved even more in the last year or so by using the old school chest expander device.
Yeah, I see you with that. That's old
Oh, I
school.
love that thing. I used to do 4 springs for low reps. Now I'm doing 7 springs for moderate reps.
Do you find that there's an element of even health, shoulder health with that? Because you're training in a position. Yeah, I was going to say, like, you're training that horizontal abduction, you're getting those mid traps. What's your experience with that?
It builds your rear delts and your traps, both at the same time. It's like a band pull apart on steroids. All these amazing exercises are never loaded heavily. And it's like, why? And the guy will grab a mini band and just do little dislocations, little pull aparts for reps of 20 or 50. But if you would add it on thicker bands or just put on more, now you can really strain and open up. You do this at the gym with the reverse pec deck, but not with bands or springs. Training that movement pattern specifically absolutely benefits long-term health. And Louis Simmons had pointed out that in the 70s, guys had less shoulder injuries from bench press specialization, and the expander was one of the reasons why. So when people dropped it, all of a sudden they could have still fixed it had they done the rear delt work and all that, but by dropping that movement pattern specifically, it just puts you at a higher risk. I bench heavy all the time. I do a lot of presses, and I can tell you that my shoulders haven't felt this good in a long time, just from not having that lagging area.
I'm glad you brought that up, actually, because this is something that if you're listening to this and you're doing heavy pressing, a lot of heavy pressing, and you do have some shoulder issues. Now, first and foremost, we're not saying this is going to cure your shoulder problems. And also you might want to get that checked out by a qualified professional. Sure. Yeah. So those are the first two things, disclaimers, but might want to consider balancing out that routine a little bit, because if you're doing just a lot of heavy pressing and all your back work is just pull-ups and more traditional bodybuilding stuff, well, this is something that I can even speak to where I don't have the springs, Alex. I'll do max, sub max, just because I'm not trying to necessarily cause too much fatigue, but I'll do it between my sets of benching and my shoulders feel phenomenal. No. Just an isometric against the wall, bro. So I'll do single arm. I'll do like a 10, 15 second isometric pushing. So I'm not stretching. I'm literally training the trap slash rear delts in between my warm-up sets to prep me for my heavier sets of bench, right? And then I'll move on. You don't have to
stretch them either, because when you do rows, it's most going to be short in position work anyway. Very few have that length and bias unless it's those prime machines. So by you're getting specific by actually doing those isometrics there, and the strength radiates 15 degrees in all directions, so it's going to help you even when you're a little bit lower.
I feel like that's really helped as far as health perspective. Yeah, I might want to look into those springs though. That's pretty cool. Do you have a link or anything like that you are sponsored by, or anything that we should know about?
Yeah, it's not an affiliate link, but definitely recommend Robert Baraband's 7 spring all metal construction chest expander. It's the best in the market. A lot of the alternatives are just those cheap. They have like these plasticky wooden handles, and the springs aren't good quality. So if you want anything bronze era related, you want to get it from him. Shop.handgripper.net. Not only is it the best right now, but it's the best in history.
Oh, wow.
Austrian made. It's literally like devices that were around 100 years ago in a modern way with better materials and whatnot. So it's like the improved like York version, and the one from Eugene Sandow. They've been around since I think the 1880s. It predates the barbell. If you look up Fred Rollon, you'll be shocked. The guy had a physique like a lot of natural bodybuilders in the WNBF in 1905 using that damn expander. So it works. And I wish I knew about it sooner, because it's done wonders for my rear delts and traps.
Let me ask you this. Do you use it as like any other lift? Not like how I mentioned where I'm kind of using it as where I'm doing the isometrics in between my warm-up sets for bench. That's something different. You're actually training it in a progressive, to build muscle. Strength.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's something different. And you said the other options are, you got the reverse pec deck, of course, and you could use the cables.
Yeah. But it's not as good, I'll tell you.
Okay.
Yeah, in my experience. The expander is so good that I refuse to use the reverse pec deck. I would actually bring mine to the gym instead of doing that exercise. Like, you're straining throughout the whole range of motion from start to finish. And the end contraction is just psychotic. Like the amount of tension there is. Like, it's like you're resisting horses.
Holy smokes. Okay, cool, man. That's something definitely then I got to consider. I'm also considering the neck harness, because I do want to start training my neck in a progressive fashion. Again, I just do isometrics from a health longevity standpoint, but these are lifts that you can progress. If you do it safely, you do it in the right way. Talk about that. You do this for your rear delts, your traps. Now you also got the neck harness. You're training your neck. I've seen that. How do you program it, structure it?
For the neck, first of all, if you're going to get a harness, make sure it's high quality, or else you risk it falling off your head, like breaking. Okay. And that's happened to me and Bald Omni, man. Same story. So cheaper ones might handle around 45 pounds or so. But if you're doing double that, it could snap mid-set and you might end up getting a concussion or falling off the bench. Just a little something to consider if you plan on going heavy. If it's just going to be higher reps, then you're probably fine with the cheaper one. But anyway, for the front part of the neck, which is going to build that thickness when you're just talking to someone, the neck curl done with a plate is probably your best exercise. So what that is, lie down on a bench, wear like a hat of some kind to protect your forehead, put the plate straight on right in the center, and then just stretch and squeeze, nothing else. And your
Mm.
hands are just there so that the weight doesn't fall off. You want to be crunching your abs or doing like a pullover motion. It's got to be neck isolation, or else you're going to be one of those dudes who has like 245s in your hands and you're just jerking. And I've done that for high repetitions and it will work, but it's very inefficient. It doesn't have a good stimulus to fatigue ratio. So you might as well drop it. Even 45 pounds is quite heavy if you're doing it right. But I would recommend anyone start with a 5-pound weight and control it all the way through. You might be in a higher rep zone just by design, not because of the shorter range of motion is better, but because that's just how it's going to play out as it pertains to the weight, unless you really increase it. But then by increasing it, you risk doing that pullover motion. So that's the exercise for the front of the neck. And then the back, honestly, you can't beat the neck extension with a harness. And my favorite for that is you have your hands on your knees. You're not 100% upright because when you extend here, there's basically no tension. You just lean a little bit forward like that. You're braced good. Boom. Right here. You know, because if you're flexing here, like right now, I'm straining my neck. But over there, I mean, I can hold that position all day. I can do a neck deadlift. I can, take a chain, put on a loading pin, and just stand up like that. And I'm gonna have a bunch of weight on there. So it's not doing much for neck hypertrophy. And if you don't like that movement, I'd actually recommend doing neck extensions on a reverse hyperextension, because now you're tractioning the cervical discs, which is crazy, and I just discovered this in the last year or so, but you're pumping fluid into that area and you're getting rotation and extension under load. The same way you would do it for the sacrum, you're doing it for the upper part of your spine. If guys have like neck problems, I would recommend that exercise for restoration and strength muscle building. And the side neck work, you could do if you're a combat athlete. So all the twisting and the bending, you can do that with a plate on your forehead like this, or with bands or a cable. But truthfully, if you just did those two exercises, you would have a pretty nice neck, progressively overload like anything else.
The flexion extension you feel is definitely going to be more favorable to a well-developed, depending on, again, this is subjective, but pleasing look as far as your neck is concerned.
Yep, that's all you need. If you do the extension, that's going to help you on your compound movements, and it's also going to build your traps. So if you have neck pain when you do barbell squats or using an SSB, that's going to reinforce the whole region. Won't make your neck look bigger from the front, but from the back, you'll have that nice bulldog action. So if you want to look wide from here, you either got to do the flexion or the lateral work. But I'll say this, it's the same function of the neck. The sternocleidomastoid, it does neck flexion, right? You can argue that you'll bias a bit more by going a bit to the sides, but at the end of the day, if you're flexing, you're flexing. It's going to build the whole darn thing.
So who put you onto that? Or is that something you just thought, logically speaking, I need to train this like any other muscle?
I mean, in the gym that I grew up in, I say grew up, but you know what I'm saying? They had a neck extension machine, and I would see some of the football players use it. And there was this one guy who was really yoked, and he was always on that thing, and he had a huge neck. So that was kind of like a real life inspiration. But just in general, when you watch old school anime, these characters, man, they have necks that are wider than the darn head. I watched a lot of Dragon Ball Z, Baki, and the one thing that made them look impressive, it wasn't even their pecs or their shoulders, their arms. It was just when they're this close, right? And you see the neck. So I was inspired by cartoons of all things. And then in real life, there was Mike the Machine Bruce. He was making videos like 10 years ago where he did a neck extension with 300 pounds for a double. That inspired me. By learning about him, you just get into this rabbit hole where you're learning about all the greats who focus on neck training, and you take from them and you experiment and you figure out what works. Also wrestlers as well, like Mike Tyson. Well, he wasn't a wrestler, but he used to do wrestler bridge, right?
Yeah.
So you just see these trends, and the thing is, none of these guys did neck training for hypertrophy in isolation as the goal. They did it for competitive reasons, right? It was always in a combat setting. I took that and I'm like, okay, let's do it just to look better. That's kind of how it started, and it blew up. I was talking about it for aesthetics, whereas no one else was doing so at the time.
That's what I was going to say. I feel like it started somewhere.
There's always a source, man. Nothing is new.
That's right. But as far as YouTube fitness is concerned, we'll say it started somewhere. And I'm wondering were you one of the first YouTubers to talk about?
I'm the first mainstream YouTuber to talk about it, because Mike the Machine, I would say, is the first.
Okay, see, I don't know.
And I actually interviewed him as well in 2015, I believe, was the first time. But he never got the popularity that I did, even though he was much more impressive. Probably because he was older and a lot more raw, and people couldn't relate to him as much in the way that he portrayed his content. I made it cool, you can say, and then everyone else started doing it. And then Jeff Nippert got into it as well. Then Scott Herman. I was inspired by Mike. So we see this in music as well.
Yes.
They take inspiration from a different artist, and the original does not get famous. He's still broke. Whereas the guy who, borrowed some of his stuff is killing it. So I'm kind of that guy, you can say. And it's funny because I don't even have the biggest neck. It's good, and now it's shrunk, obviously. But, I'm not as good as Mike was. I've never done a 300-pound neck extension.
Right. But, your neck, from what I'm looking at, it's very thick and developed. Like you can see you've got a thick neck.
A lot of it is my traps, like I'm yoked up.
Yeah.
That's the biggest one. My neck used to be a lot thicker, and then I stopped training it for some time. I got lazy.
Okay.
But the traps, I've always kept that up. So I think that's what's giving the illusion right now. Also, the beard is hiding some of that lower portion. But I always say, if you're yoked, man, like that's gonna make you look more jacked than you actually are. Because all you see is this. Like if I just get real close and it's just traps and delts, you know, it helps.
Yeah, for sure.
Factor.
The traps is a big thing as far as how thick someone's gonna look around the cervical region. You were doing 2 times per week, full body, and then you had the 2 GPP days, right?
That's right. I built most of my physique with that till the end of 2019. So I started doing upper lower in 2020. I rolled with that up until the last 10 months.
So you just recently switched to, I want to say something like an upper lower, but I could be wrong.
My contest prep program was